What's up? It's Matt. We're back with a Friday edition Restaurant Expert Roundup, and we got double coming at you. We got two people, the authors of this book. We'll be back in a second to talk a little more. Welcome Friday. Carl, Meredith.
Great to see you again, Matt. How are you?
I'm living the dream. So I know, Meredith, you're in sunny, cool San Francisco. Carl, where are you at right now?
I'm in 89-degree Fahrenheit Orange County in California. It's a lovely warm day down here, and so I can't complain.
You know, the last, two or three times ago when I was in California, we started in San Francisco. Against my kids and my wife's will, I rented a convertible Mustang, and we drove from San Fran all the way down to San Diego, down the Pacific Coast Highway. I thought it was great.
Lovely. That'd be beautiful.
They all complained that it was uncomfortable in the convertible. And I'm like, I'm fine. I fit in it. But I guess I was the bad dad, but we had a great time.
That's the way to do it.
So we'll start with you, Carl. Meredith, tell us about, number one, about you, a little about the book. And then I want to also hear about Carl and then how you all met and how this came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been in the restaurant industry for about 10 years. I started in restaurants at Taco Bell, ultimately as the chief development officer there, building lots and lots of Taco Bells. And halfway through that journey, I thought, gosh, it's weird that we're building so many restaurants next to malls when no one goes to malls anymore. And all of those restaurants are doing just fine, but it planted a seed in my mind that only grew when we tried to enter Manhattan. And I thought, how strange that we would pay the world's most expensive real estate to send the food out the door delivery. So when I walked into Kitchen United, which is a ghost kitchen, the one backed by Google Ventures, I knew, man, they're making the thing that I, as the customer, the chief development officer of a large national brand, wish existed. So that is how I ended up in the restaurants and learning about all of these things that are going on, ghost kitchens, virtual brands, all the digital ordering, everything. And also it is there that my path intersected with Carl's and met him.
Yeah, awesome. It's I had just recently left BP. I'd spent about 18 years in the oil and gas space, 15 years in the gas station convenience market. Used to run the AM/PM business over here, which was 1,000 units C-store chain, over $1 billion worth of revenue each year. And it was really there, Matt, where I saw just the change in dynamics of convenience in general, just the way in which consumers were demanding more from convenience stores, but convenience was being delivered to them in very much more digital fashion. And when I left BP, I remember speaking to a friend of mine, a mutual friend of Meredith and mine, and I said, look, I really want to get into startups, but what's the transition like moving from a huge organization like BP into a startup? And our mutual friend said, oh, you should meet Meredith. She's gone and left Yum Brands and she's doing this ghost kitchen thing. I was like, what's a ghost kitchen? And she said, well, why don't you meet her and you can find out from there. And so Meredith and I met more as a career interest, just to understand that transition journey that she had been on a year earlier. And we hit it off really well. And from there, she said, well, why don't you come and run operations, build up our operating model at Kitchen United? And that's when we started working together. That's when between us, we started to meet pretty much every major restaurant chain in America, helping them see what ghost kitchens were, how they could help, but also saw the challenges around digitization, the challenges around how to optimize your off-premise footprint. And we were driving back one day back to Orange County, and I said to her, look, we need to get these guys, we need to get them a book, because it's one thing us saying something, but it would be really handy if we could find a book and that would help them understand what's going on. And Meredith said, yeah, great, Amazon, let's go and get a bunch. And we went onto Amazon and we couldn't find said book. So I don't know, a year or so later, we'd left Kitchen United and we came back and we said, now's the time to write the book. The pandemic hadn't yet just started, but we had the idea for the book and we said, right, let's get to it. And over the course of the pandemic, we interviewed over 100 or so executives in both restaurants, technology, folks that were doing things in off-premise space. And it was fantastic because we got to hear these stories from amazing entrepreneurs, amazing folks doing some really good things in the space. and we pulled it together in 264 pages. The book came out on Kindle in July of last year. It's been out on hardback since October. I just recorded the audio book with my lovely dulcet tones in January, Matt. And so if you want me to whisper you to sleep each night, we can do it that way. But the book's been great. We've been since talking at a bunch of conferences across the US and internationally about these themes. And it's great to be back talking to you again today.
Well, I love it. And here's the book, and you can find it on the interwebs. There's a lot of great places to get it. I got a little, where's that at here? There's delivering the digital restaurant. And what I find comical about the title of the book from a standpoint of what I saw the past couple of years was that, I don't consider myself a trailblazer on certain things. I'm ahead of the game a couple of years usually, but not to the level that you guys are with the ghost kitchens, things like that. But I remember the arguments I had with restaurant clients of ours, because we work with mainly independents across the country. And I remember the arguments, not arguments, but debates, the year and a half to 2 years leading up to the pandemic. Like, okay, why can't you you need to order on your website? It would make so much more sense if somebody could order on your website, walk in here and grab it versus calling the girl at the counter, putting it on the bar, coming back 10 minutes later, walking in, it's wrong. I'm like, wouldn't you rather the customer order it wrong than you take the order wrong? And it was that, and then that led to third party. Then that led to just all these conversations. And I'll never forget that every one of those clients, the day that the pandemic called me, like, okay, how do we do this crap? And I'm like, who's your point of sale? And that's what we spent a month after the pandemic hitting of helping them all kind of shift. They're a much different animal as far as brain power than a Taco Bell. There's a fourth floor marketing department and a tech department, whereas a lot of these independents are one-offs, and it's the owner who pressure washes the parking lot and updates the website and does Facebook. And
that's right. That owner might be a really, really smart guy, but there's just one of them, right? Yep. And that makes it very tough to know everything there is to know about the business, about HR, about cooking, about technology. It's a lot. Yep. And because of the fragmented nature of the restaurant industry, I think it was a little behind in adopting this stuff. And in many ways, although the pandemic was very, very difficult for the industry, it caused the industry to say, oh, this matters. I need to do this. I need to get on board with technology. I need to be where my consumers are. And because of their ingenuity, just were able to rapidly adopt this stuff that probably would have taken years without the pandemic.
Well, I think Bill Gates said it best, didn't he? He said 10 to 15 years of digital adoption in 1 to 2 years. Right? Oh, yeah. So that's what I think we've witnessed, which has been the fastest level of digital escalation across any industry, quite honestly.
Oh, I used to joke before the pandemic that restaurant clients of ours were 20 years behind technology. And now I look and go, a lot of them are 5 to 10 years behind. And a lot of them have been forced, Sean Walchev said this. I can't remember exactly how he said it on a podcast a couple of weeks ago when he was here at the office talking about it, that a lot of times when you're forced to figure out things, you figure them out. Like he talked about when he opened the Cali BBQ, that he didn't get all the media attention he thought he'd get, the newspaper, the news, the radio, none of it happened. And he said, okay, how do I create it? And he went to his phone and social media. Well, I think the same thing. A lot of restaurants figured, okay, well, customers don't know how to order from me now. They don't know how to get a hold of me. How do we do it? So that leads me to a question, and I'll make a comment, and then I want to ask one of the questions I had on here, the 2 questions I brought up. So one thing I'm excited about from the restaurant standpoint is that, like, I've got an 18 and a 20-year-old, and they know what mobile ordering and Uber Eats and Grubhub is more than they know driving to an actual restaurant. And so, like, my daughter has, I don't know how this happened. So Paige, if you're watching, I don't know how she got the app on her Uber Eats is my credit card. She's money. But somehow, like the other day, I'm like, man, when did I order Papa John's on Uber Eats? And then my wife's like, oh, you didn't know Paige is hooked up to your account. And I'm like, oh, that little shyster. But I mean, the one thing that excites me about the restaurant world is that, this generation is growing up with restaurants, with people making food for them, and they'll be more, reliant on that. And to me, that makes it to the aspect of delivery, that it's gotten a lot easier. I mean, I remember back in the day where it was just, you could order a pizza and maybe that pizza place happened to have subpar wings. Okay, I'm kind of want wings. Let's get pizza for dinner. Now it's like, whatever the hell you want, right to the pool. Person comes to your pool gate, yells at you, you grab your food, and you're eating food.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, look, what we talk about in the book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, is this weird acronym, but it represents what the customer mentality is. And it is, I want what I want when I want it. And I think the reflection of today's modern consumer is exactly that. And it's happened not because of the restaurant industry, because of that expectation being set by other verticals. Right? The other verticals have said, actually, you can get whatever you want through an Amazon interface right now, 3 clicks later, and it will be with you tomorrow. Wow, that's amazing, right? You can go onto a GoPuff and get something delivered to you within 15, 20 minutes. That kind of mentality has been bubbling through the surface, I think, of the consumer mindset over these last few years. And now they're saying, well, I want that from my restaurant experience too.
Yeah, you're spot on. And one thing that reminds me when you said that about comparing to Amazon, I used to always tell clients of ours 15 years ago, like, look at your website and then go to the websites that you and your wife and your friends go to, ESPN, Target. You have to be similar. Like, you can't be a big thumb out there. It has to look similar in the experience. And it's the same way that restaurants are the same way. People are, I ordered something on Amazon a month ago. No lie, it showed up within an hour. Yeah. Like, I'm like, look, I was at my house in my office. I see this dude walking to my front door. And I'm like, what's this guy doing? He walks up and it was an adapter. It was a dongle. And I'm like, yeah. Like, I got your delivery. And I'm like literally going, did I just order that? Like, no, so no, the guy was
Paige. It was Paige again. It was Paige, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my daughter. So talk about, the future. I mean, because delivery can work for everybody, right? I mean, it's not just for the big or the little. I mean, there's got to be adaptation of everybody, right, Meredith?
I think that's right. I mean, it's important to remember we are in the early days of delivery, and that because it happened so quickly because of the pandemic, there are a lot of aspects of delivery that are not exactly perfect for anyone. And, you think about the noise that you hear among some of the drivers, you think about the big platforms that are losing money, you think about the restaurants complaining about the fees and the loss of their customer data. There's a lot that isn't perfect about it, right? And it's going to take some time for the whole ecosystem to catch up to what happened with consumer demand so quickly during the pandemic. Now, I think that there is a lot of room for improvement and a lot of things that can happen. I think take something as basic as the algorithms, right? These are little baby algorithms on the third-party platforms. They're not very sophisticated. They haven't learned a lot yet from a machine learning standpoint. And so when you compare your search experience on Amazon or on Google to your search experience on a DoorDash or an Uber, it's different. And it's different because it doesn't have all that accumulated experience of all those searches to help you find the exact perfect thing for you. It's also different because the way restaurants have historically structured their menus, there are a lot of different things that each restaurant offers across different categories of a menu. And that isn't how shopping in the rest of the world works, right? So as those algorithms get smarter and smarter and smarter, and as restaurants start to change the way in which they display their menus, just something as simple as the search interface is going to become better and better for the consumer.
Yeah. And what I like, I was talking to a guy the other day on the menu part, and he's way smarter than me, and which probably isn't that hard, but he's a menu guy and an algorithm guy. He was talking about dynamic restaurants that you come back and you're an active user in their system. And when you come back, the menu is reorganized based on what you've bought and also what other people have bought that combos well with what you get. Totally. And so, imagine if I was telling a friend of mine that this is about 3 years ago, and he was really struggling he was getting off Facebook. And I said, well, why are you getting off Facebook? I can't stand the political crap. I said, well, why don't you quit commenting on it? What do you mean? Like, well, when you comment on it, it thinks you want to see it and you show it. I said, think about it this way. Imagine if you opened the Sunday paper from 20 years ago and the only thing on the front page was your exact sports stuff that they knew you loved, and it was different for every house. And he's like, oh. So I said, I want you for the next 24 hours to find everything funny goat videos and cats and comment, like, and share it. And in 2 days,
see what happens to your internet.
And he was like, holy crap. Well, to me, this guy was telling me this restaurant and this technology he's working on. And I was like, that's pretty cool, because we're all creatures of habit, but we're also easy. If I go, I'll order random stuff through restaurants more often on their website and they're ordering and third party than I will in the restaurant, because it's simple. It's like, oh, chocolate chip cookies. Hell yeah. Ooh, like I ordered one time, like a month ago, I ordered delivery to our house. And my wife's like, why do we have 4 orders of like desserts? I'm like, I don't know. They all look good.
Well, I think what we're finding though is that most consumers now are what we call an omni-channel customer. You know, they choose to interact in different ways with restaurants at different times. And so one of the big myths that we tried to dispel in the book is that this isn't taken away from the dining occasion. This is taken away perhaps from the grocery occasion because of the time scarcity that people have today. But I think the beauty of all these platforms now, and we're seeing it with the DoorDashes, we're seeing it with the Uber Eats. You saw it on the Super Bowl commercials where they're saying we're doing more than just deliver dinner now. We're actually delivering you pharmacy. We're delivering you pet food. We're doing all these other things. And they're doing that because we've moved on now from a place where the marketplaces have been trying to do, for all intents and purposes, land grab, where they've been trying to get restaurants signed up to their platform. We're getting ever closer to a duopoly in the marketplace environment here in the US. And so these marketplaces are now saying, okay, well, now we need to make better utilization of our fleets. We need to give our customers more choice so that when they think about they want something delivered, they can come to our platform and they can get whatever they want delivered. And guess what? When we look at more mature markets like in China, when we look at Meituan, when we look at LME, that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing that. And what that means, I mean, they've got a slightly different dynamic of how much it costs for their riders over there. But in China, at least, it's now cheaper for you to have something delivered from a restaurant than it is to go out and dine out. And so that happens when you can actually make the logistics piece actually far more efficient. And so that's the direction we're heading. So that's something to be excited about because that will help everyone.
Oh, I ordered food last week because I literally, no lie, I was looking, I was hungry and I really didn't want to. It was a nice night. I'm by the pool and I'm like, okay, I'll get something. I'll go get it. And I thought about it because gas here is $5.95 and I'm not really, I don't look at gas prices a whole lot, but I'm like, okay, it's going to cost me $6 to get it delivered here. The way I drive, I get like 4 miles a gallon in my car.
And the cars you drive. Don't forget, I've seen your cars.
And so I'm like, I might just, it'll save me money to hang out by the pool. And yeah. I think you said it great there. Like it's not stealing me going to restaurants. It's taking me doing other things that for me are less convenient because I suck at cooking and we waste a lot of food when I attempt to cook.
Totally.
We go the other route.
Totally. So other aspects of delivery that I think will get better, certainly what Carl is talking about in moving toward a duopoly that delivers more than just food.
Yep.
The spirit of that is to better utilize the network and therefore bring down the cost per delivery.
Okay.
Other things that might bring down the cost per delivery are automated vehicles. People talk about drones and get all excited about that. And there might be other ways to do it, right? You think about, a pizza place who has its own little delivery fleet. Guess what? Their cost per delivery is lower than what the cost per delivery at DoorDash is. And all they're doing is delivering pizza, right? They're not also trying to bring you soap and, tennis shoes. They're very focused. And so there are a lot of different ways to solve that problem of the last mile cost of delivery. And it'll be interesting to see which ones win and which ones are best able to bring that cost down, because it's clear that consumers want this, right? Yeah. Even with all of the clunkiness of the early days of delivery, it is clear that consumers want the convenience. They want to shop online, so to speak. They want to have their food brought to them. And as the industry evolves and all the different players compete with one another, they will come up with better and better ways to fill that consumer need.
Okay. And we've talked about this a little bit. Talk about why it's here to stay. Because there's some people, certain things in this world are trends and they come and they go and they come and they go. And while I think maybe Uber Eats might be a trend, the product of delivering food from the restaurant to my house isn't a trend, right?
That's exactly right. So we often get asked, well, what exactly is a digital restaurant? And it's being where your consumer is. Your consumer is digital. Your consumer is on their phone, on their computer. And so you need to be on their phone and on their computer also. And that's not just true in the marketing sense, like Sean talks about. It's true in the sense of how do they access your brand? How do they actually place an order? And then how does that order get fulfilled? And, Carl already talked about one aspect in which consumers have changed, which is that their expectations have just been fundamentally reset by all the other categories that are further along than restaurants. And that I want what I want when I want it expectation is there. It's in the consumer, and that's not going to go away or change.
The other side of this is digital hospitality and the importance of the consumer data set being used in such a way to be able to enhance digital hospitality. So when you look at delivery, we need to also break it down into marketplace delivery and then first party delivery, where the restaurant has the digital ordering aspect themselves, where they're able to access the customer data. And that customer data, if it's amalgamated in an appropriate way, if you have a CDP, a customer data platform database in place, that will then enable you to have a better understanding of who your customer is. It allows you to do things like lookalike audiences, to be able to then start personalizing your marketing in such a way that enables you to be able to offer what your customers want based on what they've purchased before, but also on what you can learn from customers of a similar type. Now, that's really enticing because, you think, Matt, of your favorite dining in experience where you've gone to a restaurant. I always think of, perhaps a particularly great server, a great experience. Carl, you and your wife have come in again. Last time you had this bottle of Chardonnay. Would you like it again? I notice your wife is vegetarian. These are some of the great items that are vegetarian on the menu. That's great service that we all experience occasionally when we have great service in a dining occasion. Now, if you have a grasp on your customer data, you can do that every single time.
Yep.
And you can do it not just for delivery, right? You can do it for curbside pickup. You can do it for pickup in general in the store. You can do it for all these different ways. And so that's the real power that I think we're talking about, helping restaurants really empower themselves to be able to give digital hospitality a real opportunity of coming through in these next few years.
That's right. And in the book, Delivering the Digital Restaurant, we have a chapter called Our Tastes Are Changing. Yeah, there you have it. And it's all about how the American palate is really developing and changing and having higher expectations of their food. And that is happening in a way that has led to increased desire for nutrition and health, increased desire for international flavors, but ultimately, more than anything, something that we call food as identity, and using what we eat in order to explain to others who we are. This has become, it probably started with the Instagram phase of craze of taking pictures of your food. But, you hear people say it all the time. Oh, I'm a vegan. They say it very proudly. Or, oh, I eat keto. And they say it very proudly, right? Whatever people identify as it relates to their food, they want to share it with you. They want to tell you about it. But not everyone's going to eat keto. Not everyone's going to be vegan. And so what ends up happening is you have all these, what we would call micro niche eating profiles. And a brick and mortar restaurant just really can't support a whole bunch of different micro niches. But guess what? The internet can. And as you start to have this very digitized environment, you start to have sub menus, virtual restaurants, a digital interface that allows consumers to find exactly what they're looking for. Instead of driving through suburbia and seeing the same 20 restaurants that is in every suburban location, you can cruise around the internet and find exactly what meets your nutritional needs.
Yeah. And what I love about it, and this is what I was telling a guy the other day, and this came from another restaurant client. He was actually in the studio, drove down from Philly 6 months ago. He said, one thing that really excites me about what the pandemic forced me into, which was third party and which was digital hospitality on his website. He said, now that my customers are coming back to the dining rooms, there's a fragment of my customers that aren't coming back to the dining rooms, but they're coming in to get to-go food more often, ordering it online. And there's a fragment of my customers that are ordering third party. He's like, Matt, I literally just quadrupled my seating capacity. I've got these 20 tables. He's like, I've got these 20 tables. Now I got 100 dining rooms. And then I've got these 100 people that are consistently walking in. And that's one thing, like with me, I use both. If it's convenient, really quick, I have it done. I had an acai bowl delivered to my house the other day, something really basic, a $7 item. But I'm like, you know what? I wanted it. I didn't feel like leaving. It was going to cost me $3 to drive there anyways. Might as well pay the $3 to get it. And it hasn't stopped me from going to that restaurant when I go there and get it, a couple times a week. But I think there's the generation with using the phone now. Sean and I's new podcast we started, it's called Own Their Phones. Because if you as a restaurant can't comprehend the importance of you living in that person's phone one way or the other, then you're losing it. And one of the best places to have more real estate are these third-party apps. My daughter orders more often on it. She doesn't go sitting down in restaurants on her own unless she's with me and my wife. Mm-hmm. But she orders Uber Eats all the damn time. My son orders through Chipotle's app all the time. He likes Chipotle. There's one near our house. He doesn't walk in and order. He orders on the app, goes to the window, comes home and eats it upstairs. And so
yeah, I think that's quite reflective. What we're finding more and more, Matt, is that customers choose a lane. Right? You take someone like Panera Bread, for example. Panera Bread have a fantastic digitally orientated infrastructure. Their first-party channel is really, really well refined. They have something like 60-70% of their transactions are through their own first-party channel.
Yep.
But they still have 20% of customers coming through third parties. And and then the remainder, the residual amount, are those that perhaps use both platforms. So I think much like your son and daughter, people choose a lane, and that's their preferred way of engaging with that restaurant. And I think that's the way it's going to be.
Well, I love it. How can people find out more? Obviously, they can get online and buy the book. Make sure you get it. Make sure you leave an amazing review once you read it on Amazon or what platform you get it. How else can people find y'all?
Yeah, just like restaurants, we appreciate it when people leave us great reviews. It helps other restaurants find the book the same way consumers help other consumers find restaurants. So we absolutely appreciate that. And folks can find the book, of course, on Amazon in all formats, hardcover and paperback, ebook, and maybe best of all, audiobook for those people who are busy working with their hands in the restaurants. Carl has taken the time to read the book to you, which I think is fantastic. But if you prefer to support us and order first party, you can do that at deliveringthedigitalrestaurant.com.
Right there on your screen, deliveringthedigitalrestaurant.com. And I love the fact that I can now have Carl whispering sweet nothings into my ear as I lay in my hammock on my back porch and eventually fall asleep. You know, I had this theory. It didn't work. I don't think it. When I would fly, I like falling asleep to something. So I would play Think and Grow Rich on my phone. And I'm like, hey, what if I fall asleep to this like 20 times over the next couple of years? Will I digest it while I'm sleeping? I don't think it worked. But
yeah, will it just seep into your brain? Probably. I mean, it makes sense.
A cheat code to reading more books, falling asleep.
It's like Inception. You'll be asleep and those ideas will just go into your head.
Maybe just kept on listening to the same chapter. That's what it is. You need to start it on the different chapter each night.
Well, awesome. Well, I appreciate your all's time. Make sure you get out there, grab the book. You can get it at deliveringthedigitalrestaurant.com. I got a copy, but it's mine. You can't have it. I appreciate your all's time. Enjoy the West Coast. I am back. I'm there in like 2 weeks. I can't wait. San Diego, me, the wife, and kids.
Good stuff.
Have
fun. Say hi to Sean to us when you see him.
I will. Cool. Thank y'all.
Okay, guys. Have a nice weekend.